On everyone, episode 6 of Conversations with Coaches. Almost dropped the old podcast. That one don't matter no more. So anyways, I'm going to have Stu Locke on this one. Stu will send a join request as soon as he comes on here. You know there's that 3 to 5 second gap. Stu, Wig's already on there. What's up, Wig? So Stu, there's a join request. He's quick. He's on it. Coach. He is the creator of the Prescript Barbell course. I'll ask him about all of those things and learn more about him. And he outkicked his coverage with his marriage. We'll talk about that too.
How's it going?
What's happening, Stu? How you doing?
Look at that hair.
We have the same barber. So I wanted to talk about something here. First, this is the most important question I have. Should we and can we, in fact, blame Canada? And have you ever actually met Terrence and Phillip?
You can blame Canada for pretty much everything. As a person who left Canada because it's a frozen wasteland full of terrible people, you can blame Canada for that.
So that South Park reference went like way over your head, didn't it?
No, my wife loves South Park, so I know enough. She's just every episode I have.
That is like the funniest thing because they were nominated for an Oscar for the score for that movie for the song "Blame Canada," which is like the raunchiest fucking movie ever.
Yeah.
And it's going to be nominated for an Academy Award. So let's talk about a little bit. We know some of your history from Canadian lifting, known primarily as a squatter.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
I too have one great lift. Well, I have two great lifts, but one really great lift and one lift we just, no. I love those people who are like three-way lifters. You can do all three. And I'm just like, I hate you so much.
Nice.
All right. So this is what I want to talk about because this is kind of what transitioned you into strength coaching a little bit. I know you had a background, I think, rugby, right?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to play both college rugby and college football at the University of Ottawa. So I did a year of football, sucked at school because I was an idiot. And then I got kicked off the football team for academic reasons. And then the rugby team was like, you're bad at school? That's fine. You can still play. So then I played 2 years of rugby. I was team captain the second year. And then I got my grades up and I went back and I finished with football.
This is something I love because one of my friends, Matt, who played for University of Texas, I'm sorry, not University of Texas, Baylor. I think it was Baylor when they had their national championship rugby team. And he always talked about that because he was also an assistant strength coach there. And he said the hardest thing to do is to teach incoming athletes a power clean with a PVC pipe when you have 50 of them lined up. And that was told to me like in 2003, 4, somewhere in that range. And it put things in perspective about the simplification of cues and teaching, which is what I want to get into because that's something that I know you do very, very well of simplifying movements, simplifying process. And I think that's the sign of a great coach is someone who can take the complex, but make it digestible to the simple. Not that I'm calling people simple, but not everybody has that educational background like you're talking about and referring to. I know your wife is a clinician, right?
Yes, she's a chiropractor.
Yeah, so she's chiropractor. So there's nothing said at home that comes across in simple dynamics, but being able to communicate that simplicity to an athlete is a vital coaching skill that people don't understand. So let's talk about that because you have that background from rugby to strength conditioning. How did that impact your coaching career?
So I was very lucky that when I joined the rugby team, like they didn't really have much of a coherent strength and conditioning program. And I went in and I was like, hey, like I know how to do this. Are you okay if I help out? And the coach was like, yeah, sure. Like we've never had anyone that knows what they're doing. So if you could help out, that'd be great. And so I put together like kind of a basic program. I'd run team lifts with the guys on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the season. And then in the off season, obviously 4 days a week. And it was literally just like, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. I'd never worked with people in person before. And I was like, oh, I have like 30 or 35 guys that are willing to listen to me. So I'll just try it out. And like most coaches, I overcomplicated everything at first. And then I would get kids who couldn't do a bodyweight lunge. And I was like, fuck. Like, what do I do? And so I had to really like take a big step back and be like, okay, how do I get this kid who can't do a bodyweight lunge? Like, how do I get him to eventually like put a bar on his collarbones and squat? And so I just like went to like, how to get someone to squat if they can't squat. And they were like, oh, progress with like single joint exercises and regress the range of motion and stuff like that. And so, you know, I had done a lot of research on that, and then I had worked with enough not great athletes that I kind of figured out some kind of a system. So that was definitely a benefit. But for me, from the simplification perspective, 80% of that came with working with general population clients in person and personal training.
100%. And that's can't be overlooked, because when you can teach anyone, whether they're 80 or 8 to squat, it's a lot easier to cue a lifter who actually knows the verbiage you're talking to.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. And I was very lucky that I actually had a fitness manager when I first started working, and he would rip me apart incessantly for overcomplicating things.
Because everyone starts there. They read every periodization book known to man, and then they start with this like ultra complex wave-loaded periodization style, of undulation, and they're like, huh?
Yeah. It was like, no one cares what you know. They just want to like you, and they want to get at least in the direction of their goals. And I was like, oh. And so I had to do a lot of training with him to get me to dumb things down to the point where I could give it to general population people.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember having an argument with someone. I don't like arguing online. I don't ever comment to things I don't disagree. But somebody had talked shit on a response in one of my story Q&As about 5x5, because I mentioned basic starting programs as like 5x5 structure. And so it's like, 5x5 is the dumbest thing, and this is the better, and there's science to prove this. I'm like, hey, listen, you realize Ed Cohn set every record he ever did off of a 5x5 linear structure? And I've got no response.
Yeah. Oh, the best in the world did it?
He did the simplest thing imaginable out of bodybuilding accessories and shattered every fucking record known to man. I was like, just because you can't simplify it doesn't mean they shouldn't. So I agree with that 100%. All right, so that influenced and got you started as a coach in some aspect in strength conditioning. How did you find and become a powerlifter?
It was pretty simple. So first program that I ever started running was Westside Barbell for Skinny Bastards. I was 16.
Go to Frank.
I was like, I'm not big enough, so I'm going to start lifting weights. And then I remember, like, in the infancy of YouTube, I was like, looked up Westside. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. These guys are insane. And so I always, like, in the back of my mind, I remember in high school, like, I'd watch Eric Lillibridge's YouTube videos and stuff like that. And so in the back of my mind, I was always a fan of powerlifting. And, like, I never squatted high bar. I always squatted low bar. And it just came time, when I finished, my sporting career at the University of Ottawa, I was like, I developed this big reserve of strength. And I still like competing and stuff, so powerlifting just seemed like kind of the natural evolution at that point.
Cool. And I know you were influenced initially in the beginning stages by Paul, right?
Yeah, I worked with Paul for the better part of 5 years. I learned a lot about how to coach the athlete from him, and from like a online coaching delivery perspective, I learned a ton from him. I learned about a lot of different types of periodization from him, and I learned a ton about more powerlifting specific style programming from him. And he was a huge influencer in the way that I currently coach. I learned a lot.
What point did you start deciding that you wanted to coach powerlifting specifically?
I kind of fell into it. So there was like a mock meet that my university put on after I had finished football, and I went in and I won, and I think I had like a 1,400 total or something. And I remember we had like a Facebook page for everyone that was in this powerlifting group, and I was like, hey guys, I just want to see if this program works. If I write a program, will you guys follow it and then send me videos? And then they were like, yeah, sure. And so I had probably, 10 or 11 people do the program and then send me their videos. And I was like, okay, well, like try this or try this, and was overcomplicating everything. And then when that finished, I think it was like a 12-week program. One of the guys was like, hey, like, can you coach me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I just kind of fell into that. So that was 2015. I still have that guy as a lifter.
No shit.
Yeah, he doesn't take lifting as seriously anymore. Like he's, 35. He's a gym teacher at a high school.
What's wrong with 35? You'll be there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool that you've maintained that relationship that long, and impactful for both him and for you that you still have that. That's really cool. But similar, because I love this ideology, and Jordan Wong and I have talked about this, and other coaches have talked about this. Is people want to know about how to get started, they just like they put up, "Hey, I'm coaching now." I'm like, "Well, who and how long have you even tried coaching?" And you did it for free first.
Yeah, and I think that's yeah, and I think that's something that like that's a stepping stone that a lot of people miss is like you don't even fucking know if you can help people out yet.
Yeah.
So start by doing it for free, because at least if you don't do a good job, they're not going to be upset with you because they got what they paid for.
Right. I'm going to be honest, like, I'm be blunt. The coaches who come out here who've never coached anyone and never done it for free and just decide to coach, usually are just taking the program they're getting from their coach and turning around and giving it right back to you because they don't know any other way. They've never even tried.
Yeah, and that was something that like I before I started coaching, like I had tried every free program that was available except for Candido's. And so I would just like mix and
it's only 6 weeks long. Are you lazy?
I was like, I can't do this for 4 months, fuck it. And I would just mix and match from things that I knew worked for me. And then when you find more stuff that works, you eventually, expand your repertoire. But yeah, like I just did the same shit. I just did it from fucking free programs. And I was like, well, this progression works. So
yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to talk about 2 different pivots here from where you are from. So you start with football, rugby, transition to strength and conditioning in the actual collegiate setting, fell into powerlifting coaching. When and how did you start Kodiak Barbell, which is your coaching service where you have coaches under you now?
Yeah. Okay. So that started in, we actually got to go a little bit further back than before where it started to explain things. So, very good friend of mine now. What's that?
Jordan Juanita just joined. He's part of your Prescript team, right?
Oh, yeah. So probably 2018, a good buddy of mine, his name's Dave, and he's now the other owner of Kodiak. He was like, hey, like, do you want to like write some, he owned a apparel company called Bears and Arrows. He's like, do you want to write like programs and then we can just sell them on the site? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, and you can call yourself head coach. And I was like, sick.
That's awesome.
And so that was like 2018. And then got a fair amount of clients through that. And then they would always kind of like tag and repost Bears and Arrows. And then when we got shut down at work, March 2020, like he messages me and he's like, hey, I have this other URL because like we were going to open a gym. It's called Kodiak Barbell. Like, do you want to just like transition all the coaching stuff over there and like set up like payment processing and stuff? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so he gave me the Squarespace login and I got the website set up in a couple of days. And then I just got all of my clients who had been paying me through like, Venmo or whatever to just sign up on the website with their credit card. And so May 2020, we incorporated in Canada. And then eventually we grew to the point where I was like, I can't really do this on my own, so I need other people. And then we brought people on.
How many coaches do you have under you with Kodiak Barbell? Wig is one.
Yeah, we have 4. So we have 3 training and then 1 nutrition.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So 3 training coaches, 1 nutrition coaches. Does everyone get filtered to the 1 nutrition coach, or you guys handle that as well individually sometimes?
So everyone goes to her. So anyone that has any questions, they're like, it's obviously like the service delivery is a little bit different with nutrition coaching versus powerlifting coaching. So the potential roster that you can have as a nutrition coach is a little bit bigger. And so, just to make sure that she's taken care of and that, she's comfortable with what she's making, we're like, I don't want to oversaturate it and have a bunch of coaches. So we just send it all to her.
That's pretty cool and a great startup structure. So it came as an apparel company that joined, and then the intention of joining a gym became a training company with nutrition. So full service. What about the clinician aspect that I know your wife offers? Is she involved in that?
Yes. So probably, when did we start? Probably 8 or 9 months ago. I started to realize that like, she'd kind of get pissed because it'd be like, hey, I have a lifter and they have this. Can you talk? And then she'd be like, what the fuck? And then I was like, I feel like there's a way to make this better. And so we started so we now have a 2-part intake. So the first part of the intake is they go through her. She does all of their injury history, training history, and then she's the one that puts together the prehab and their warm-ups. And then whenever they have issues, she's their touch point. So she's the person that they go to kind of work through that. And then she sends over a document to the athlete and then also the coach. So it's like, she'll send over to the coach. She'll be like, hey, they have this kind of disc injury. These movements are okay. These movements aren't. We're going to try to get them to these movements, and this is how you progress it. So it gives them like a really good template to follow. And since we've done that, things have gotten infinitely better just in terms of like us being able to retain clients, big deal. And then just the coaches are now learning more about rehab from the clinician side because they're like, oh, well, Jem said for this type of this, we can do this. And so now their brains are starting to think more like a clinician, which is great.
What a communication channel you have there, because everyone's pretty much going to the same nutrition consultant, so that's being communicated throughout the team. If they have an issue, they're going to the same clinician, and then everyone's on the same team, the same board, and getting the same updates to goes to athlete, it goes to coach, and coach is learning simultaneously. Not to overstep as a clinician, but they're learning that things they can be aware of or try or utilize and see if it works before passing on to the clinician. You have a subway system of coaching there. It's just phenomenal in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. No, it's been really good, and it seems to be getting better and better. We've had a couple of lifters who we've rehabilitated from some like pretty serious injuries, and they've gone back to the point where they've actually like have returned to the platform and have hit actual platform PRs and stuff. So it's been wonderful for us just as a proof of concept.
That's pretty cool. How are you delivering their programming to them?
Just from the rehab side or from the coaching side?
Coaching side.
Google Sheets, baby.
Google. I am so old school. I like to type them out because I'm not fast or fluent with sheets at all, and I can't see things in squares. So I literally type that way. I can look at when I put it in the notes. I can put there every week. It's right there for me to review and go back. And any coaching cues and notes I would put in there, it's just so fast for me. And everyone's like, "Why don't you use sheets?" I'm like, "Because I can't."
Honestly, for me, it was because I used to deliver programs the exact same way. Yeah. And then I remember, like, I wrote up a program for a guy at work, and he was like, you use fucking Google, like, you use Microsoft Word? And I was like, well, yeah. And he was like, the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, well, I don't know. He sat me down, and he made a template for me, and he was like, look. He's like, you just put it in here, and he's the person that taught me how to use Excel, and I was like, uh-oh.
I need to date this person. I'm sorry, Chloe, but I need to date this person to learn how to use Sheets and Excel. The only thing I like about my system, though, is it's efficient for me, and it's efficient for the client that they can copy it all and send me review notes. Not that all of them do, but they can. So it's really easy for them to send me notes underneath, which I still like. Not that they can't put it in Sheets, but and it's also synced to every Apple product I have. So from my laptop to my phone to my iPad, I can send it from anywhere if I need to. So that's a convenient factor that I'm just so hard to let go of. But one day I do want to progress to learn more of the sheet protocols, because I know it can be efficient for client, efficient for coach if they're familiar with it to do that. And then everything is easy to screenshot what you have to do for the day, and you can stay out of certain apps of your phone if you want to, because you can just look at it or write it however you want. But yeah, Sheets seems to be the most popular choice if someone's not using a platform like Train Heroic or Trainerize, and I'm forgetting one, True Coach. There's a few of them out there that people deliver and stuff like that. But Sheets is the most efficient and simplistic way, and then you can just copy week to week to week to week and keep going. And they have their entire structure there forever. So that is one benefit, that it's in one tab. Unless they stop or restart. That is a good thing. All right, so that's delivered through Google Sheets. Let's talk about where you like to learn currently, because we talked about your beginning. Where do you stay up to date and learn currently about training concepts, coaching concepts, strength concepts?
So a lot of that comes from just like kind of interfacing with other powerlifting coaches. So like I'll see if they make a change in their training. I'll be like, hey, what are you doing here? And I try to learn more from the people who are not like me. So I tend to refer out to and talk to a lot of like drug tested powerlifting coaches, because that's an area that like I personally want to improve on. And I think there's a lot of things that drug tested coaches can teach us. So a good friend of mine, his name is Louis Alexis Breton. He's coached like 2K total in sleeves, drug tested. He currently has the number one drug tested Canadian lifter all time with a 545 dots. He's a good drug tested coach, and he's like a block periodization. So I was like, hey, how do you make this work with drug tested lifters? So, I have conversations with him. I consume a lot of Steve Denovi's content. And I talked to Sean Noriega a lot.
Steve Denovi is PRS Performance, if people aren't familiar.
Yes. And then outside of the actual powerlifting realm, I'm very thankful to be associated with Prescript, and I'm actually taking the hypertrophy course right now, so I can learn about the mechanisms of hypertrophy and all that stuff, because that's also an area that I want to improve my knowledge and my skill set.
That's the next question is how you were brought on board to create the Prescript barbell course.
Yeah. Okay. So this started in 2019. So when I was working at the box gym that I was at for the longest time, Jordan came through and he did continuing education. And we had been invited to like the same invite-only meet that neither one of us ended up doing. So he knew who I was through Instagram, and he said something in one of his lectures, and I went up to him afterwards and was like, hey, like, I don't agree with that at all. And he was like, well, like, you know, I say it for this reason with general population clients, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but that's, you know, in powerlifting, like, that's stupid because that's not what we do. And he was like, oh, he's like, I get what you're saying. And so we had a good long conversation about that, and then we became closer friends. And then when COVID kicked off, that box gym that I was working for at the time, they went to him and they're like, hey, can you do like some kind of continuing ed, because all of our trainers are stuck at home. And he got
COVID as a blessing. Some people saw it as a curse. I saw it as a blessing. Let's get creative.
Yeah, and he was stuck in Australia at the time, and he had filmed like 30 hours of pre-recorded barbell content. So he was like, hey, I have all of this stuff that I've already recorded. The company that you work for wants me to make a course. So do you want to just make this course with me and then we can present it together? And I was like, fucking let's do it. And that was the first course we ran was August of 2020.
Okay, that's pretty cool. What is the Prescript barbell course, if you had to describe it to people who don't know? Is it powerlifting specific or is it barbell movement specific?
It's essentially how a trainer would optimize setup, stabilization, execution of squat, bench press, and deadlift for their clients. So it's more, it's more trainer focused education. So we go through kind of functional anatomy, biomechanics, and then we go through programming at the end and just making sure that they understand, like, okay, based on, this client's anthropometry, how they're presenting, all the other issues they have, how are we going to get them to be able to comfortably perform these movements?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to reach out and reach back to something that you and I talked about, roughly a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago in the DMs. You had said, and you had asked, in my opinion, was it worth going back to school to get those credentials that neither you and I finished?
Yeah.
And I said, would it change or impact any way that you work or do things? Could you get the education without the credentials? Would it change anything? And you're like, that's something to think about. You're like, no, I guess it wouldn't, because I still have this conversation with people today. It is a regret of mine that I didn't go back and get the actual credentials that I can put after my name from the collegiate level, but the education still continues and I still apply and still use in the exact same way you do. So I want to point people out to that just because you have a CSCS doesn't mean you know how to teach shit about a squat or put a program together or help someone. It just means that you've memorized the book. But you started in the reverse process of helping, teaching, growing first, created your own company around that, and then linked up with people who are clinicians who wanted your expertise at that point and education to help coincide with theirs and teach. Didn't need their credentials there because you got the credibility beforehand.
Yeah. And I've also been very lucky too that, a lot of the people that I'm associated with at Prescript, if I had because I don't really, I did, 6 months or 8 months of exercise science, or not even exercise science, health sciences before I flunked out.
Flunked out.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, you're just bad at school, dude." And so I'm really lucky that my wife was an absolute wizard in school, and then everyone that I work with at Prescript is brilliant. So if I ever have any actual questions, I can be like, "Hey, what about this?" And I do reach out to them actually rather often. So I'm very lucky in that regard. And I also kind of realized over time that the CSCS is a little bit bullshit, just because I thought that you needed to have an exercise science degree to write your CSCS, but it's just an undergrad.
Any undergrad. Yep. And it's writing and understanding strength conditioning programs not specific to any particular sport. It's understanding the writings of Fleck and Kramer from Illustrated Essentials of Strength Conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good information. It's great to know. If you have it, phenomenal. I'm not knocking it, but if you have it, you also have like $50,000 to $100,000 in debt, where you can do the same education and make your money right away. Which to me seems economically smarter if you're capable of doing so. You know, I don't
Yeah.
have any student loan debt and like that, so I'm not really worried about it. So, and I'm doing pretty all right. You're doing pretty all right. That's a
Yeah.
fascinating backstory. You guys are actually coming down to Miami, about 2 hours south of me, in June, I think, right?
Yes. So I might fuck up the dates. I think it's June 17th, 18th.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty sick. So this is the first time we've run the barbell course in person, which we wanted to do from the outset. So it's going to be 2 8-hour days where we're going to go through setup, stabilization, execution of squat, bench press, and deadlift. And then they also get access to the online course as well. So there's another 25 hours of pre-recorded content, and then there's a lab and lecture, and it's a 9-week course. So 25 hours of pre-recorded content, 18 hours worth of labs and lectures, and they also get a textbook. So it ends up being a lot of information.
Yeah. So both days are the pre-script barbell course?
Yeah.
It's a very intensive course. Other than squat, bench, and deadlift, what's gone over there typically or planned?
Essentially, we go through like kind of the basics of programming. So it's like, okay, like how would you progress a lifter on this? And we go through case studies, right? So it's like, all right, we have a lifter in their squat, and we know that an intermediate lifter is going to squat 2 to 3 days a week. And the lifter fails, the chest caves in the squat. So based on what we know about variations, based on what we know about, we come up with something called the working rep framework, which is just disperse volume throughout the week. And it's like, okay, based on where they fail, based on how much frequency they know that they need, and based on how much volume we know that they need, put together a training week for their squat. And then we do one for bench, and then we do one for deadlift. And so by the end, they have this skeleton plan of like, okay, I know the athlete needs these variations. I know they need this amount of volume. I know they need this amount of frequency. And I know that they need these types of accessory exercises based on where they're weak.
That's pretty cool. That would be very in-depth. And anyone who is either, looking to enhance their skill set or looking to understand programming aspects and positional awareness and aspects of technique and form should definitely be there. And who doesn't want to be in Miami? I mean, myself, because I don't like the traffic, but nonetheless, Miami's beautiful.
So coming from Canada, I was like, oh, maybe I'll like Miami because I've never been there. And I went there, and it's like a hot Toronto. The traffic is fucking horrible. The traffic is horrible. There's shit everywhere. And I'm like, why do people want to live here?
It's busy. Yeah, it's super busy. The people who live there love it. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't live there. I live in the suburbs. And I go down there, I'm like, there's 3,000 more cars in every 5 square feet of the road around you. I'm like, well, I don't live this way. I don't get it. But they love the food. They love the coffee, Cuban coffee, whatever. They go nuts for that shit and lattes. So, but I'm not a coffee drinker. Maybe that's why I don't love Miami.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. What is coming up for you personally as a lifter? Are you going to be stepping on the platform anytime soon?
Yeah, so I was supposed to compete at the meet that we hosted this past weekend. Unfortunately, the stress of setting up our life in a new country and, doing all, like, getting the business incorporated in America and like all that stuff was taking a lot more of my mental effort than lifting was. And then I got to the point where I was just like burning the candle at both ends. And I was like, oh, I'm just not recovering. And I'm also not enjoying training whatsoever. So I'm working with Seth right now. So we're just essentially just a reintroduction block, get me back to the point where I'm comfortable and can push again. And then I have totally put my hands up and given him complete carte blanche. And I was like, you fucking pick the meet. You tell me, you just write it. You tell me when the date is. You pick the numbers. I've completely given up all control. You figure it out.
Wow, you gave Seth that much control, huh? That's dangerous. He's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Now, all right, so that brings up an interesting question. Because I know Seth, and obviously I coach Miana, and Seth and Miana would come down on Sundays, and he told me you were very influential in helping him establish and setting up his business. Is business coaching ever going to become an aspect you look into?
So one thing that I like to try to do in bias is I'm also conscious of the fact that a big influence for me in knowing how to do any of these things was Jordan Sallow. And he did this, and he helped me out completely. He was like, oh, we'll set up a Zoom call. And he talked to me for 2.5 hours about how to set up systems and do all this stuff. And he didn't ask for a fucking dollar. And so whenever I have friends that reach out and they ask about, oh, how do I do this or how do I do this, I always go out of my way to help them because I feel as though I need to pay it forward. And with all of my lifters, I try to bias at least 35% of my roster to fitness professionals. And what they get as part of their monthly coaching is also business coaching. So we set up calls to go over systems, to go over the sales process, how to generate leads, do all of that stuff. And that's included as part of their monthly coaching because, one, it's something that I enjoy to do, and it honestly gives me probably as much joy, getting someone strong as it does like helping them be able to leave their day job and pursue coaching full time. So that's just something that's just included with all of my lifters if they want it. And that was kind of my way of being able to give back. And then obviously with someone like Seth, who I've known for 6 or 7 years at this point, when he was asking me questions, I was like, oh, well, this is kind of what I do. You can do this. And then he's taken the advice that I gave and the books that I told him to read and then went a step further, and now he's fucking crushing.
Yeah, we talked a lot when he was first opening his practice and leaving school about, giving and helping and demonstrating value, and he does probably better than anybody because he once somebody made a comment once that I put more free, useful, educational content out there than any other coach. And Seth sends me at the end directly. He goes, all right, game on. Next thing you know, he's put like 2-3 videos out a day. I'm like, holy shit. He's like, I'm going to show these people what content value and education is. And then, obviously he's at a point where he's literally full as far as rehab, remote rehab, and clientele, and his value is up higher. And he like doubled his rates from where he started because like his value is so impressive. He had an interesting story because he went through chiropractic school thinking he was going to find the answers, and that's what he wanted to be. He was like a hands-on clinician. And when he was on the first episode, he talked about it. He's like, I realized I can make so much more of a lasting impact instead of touching them by teaching them.
Yeah.
And I coach in the same model. Let me teach you how to lift. Let me teach you how to understand the program. Let me teach you how to understand your habits and needs and how that makes you a much better lifter. That's something I truly value is the amount of other coaches I've helped form, create, or mindsets I've helped form and create. That's a bigger impact to me than just, okay, you got a total,
Well, it's also like, and not to demean those who choose to pursue it, but it's like, oh, great, I got a fucking strong guy stronger. How fulfilling. You know what I mean?
That was your job. That's what you're supposed to do.
Like, okay.
But if you can go the extra mile, you can go the extra mile. So do all of them have to move to Jacksonville? Because like you're creating an army locally there from what I understand.
Dude, fucking, here's the thing. It's like the last bastion of like affordable housing and freedom in Florida. So I'm like, just move here. We live 6 minutes from the beach.
No shit. You see, you're not kidding. I'm in Port St. Lucie. I'm like 4.5 hours south of you. I'm southeast, and you're northwest of me. And Port St. Lucie is the #1 city that people are moving into in Florida right now. We're expecting 300,000 new residents over the next 100,000 new residents over the next 3 years. I'm like, shit, it's gonna be Miami. So find me in Jacksonville in 3 years.
Dude, that's it.
That's pretty awesome. All right, so you did bring it up, and I want to ask you, and I'll DM you private for your list. I do like to ask a question of what book has impacted you that you feel like others should read. And you mentioned from a business aspect what list of books you have. So let's start with a book and I'll DM you separate for a list of business books that you like to read. But what book do you think would impact people the most or has impacted you the most that people should read?
So it's probably the $100 Million Offer by Alex Hormozi.
Hormozi is amazing. He's like
so
content machine.
Yeah, and so I, honestly, like I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends, and like I'm very lucky that I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. Like my parents owned a very large residential construction company in Toronto, and then they moved to the United States, and so they always, and my dad like went down the absolute rabbit hole, and he's probably got 250 business books in his library. And so, he's like nuts. Like every business book that How to Win Friends and Influence People, like all of like the OG books, he has them and I've read most of those, but a lot of it is just been learning from him. And then also like with Alex Hormozi, it's just about figuring out how to get people to understand that the service that you offer is different and better. And then fundamentally just like presenting yourself as a likable person so that people want to work with you.
Dude, you are a likable person sometimes. That's pretty cool. And I've always wondered about his book. I know it's like 99 cents if you want to get the ebook, and I have a hard time with the ebook, so I might get it anyways because I just got a new iPad from Chloe. But I find his ability to teach because he's not trying to reach the individual like you and me who have a smaller business. His main business is reaching people who have 3 million above, who want to scale above 3 million, and they get an exit strategy for their businesses. And that's what acquisition.com is. But like I said to Seth initially, come with a giving hand, demonstrate value. And basically what he's doing is he's hired mentor after mentor after mentor after mentor, business coach to learn skills. And basically everything he paid for now, he just gives away.
Yeah.
And people recognize his brand and his name and are coming through him and look at him as an authority figure in a very short period of time. Those of you who aren't really familiar with Alex Hormozi initially, he was like a project from Greg Nuckols because he had these fascinating genetics and did like this growth project to gain size when he was in college and then get out into the gym business. And the Girls Who Power Up organization, Corey, the Ivy's husband, had reached out to me when he was opening a gym here, and I'm like, dude, it's not the equipment you have, it's the culture you build. And I put him in Hormozi's original group, high ticket sales for the gym business, and they used his model to grow their brand and to grow the business. And that got so huge, he sold that off and just kept leaving exit strategy after exit strategy. Super brilliant guy who simplifies everything to what is your skill set and what skills do you need to grow further.
Yeah, and it's honestly that simple. And and it's just like, I think that the exchanging of like money for time, where you eventually just run out of time, so you have to be able to offload things that you're shitty at to people who can efficiently. And especially with us scaling now as we've gotten here, like there's just stuff where I'm like, I can't be fucked to do this. I'm just gonna pay someone to do it.
Buying your time.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're buying back your time. Like, and he talks about that often. Like, he's like, I can go to the store, I can buy my food, I can cook my food. He's like, that's going to eat up 3 hours of my time per week. He's like, or I can spend this amount and someone delivers the food and pens it for me. And he goes, that's going to buy me back 2.5 hours of that time where I could make $100 million with it. I was like, what a concept.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. So 100 million offers would be a book to read. So that's going to be in my Amazon cart like 6 minutes after we're done. All right. We talked about where you like to continue to learn and continue to grow. Where do you see yourself and your business in 5 years? What's the ambition goal to grow to?
I think, it's just honestly just kind of continuing to linearly scale from where I'm at here. I've increased my rates again since you've been in the United States, and I think I'll probably stay here for a while. And it's just about having, consistently good clients. And I think we're also at the point from an organization perspective, where we're starting to be a lot more discerning with the clients that we eventually start with. For us, at first I was like, oh, I'm going to coach whoever will come to me. But then I started to, as our brand grew and as the notoriety grew, I was like, it's really, really crucial for us as an organization to make sure that anyone who's associated with us on the client side is someone that we'd be okay with representing our brand on the worst of days. So, for us, and this is a conversation that I've had with my coaches more recently, is just like, be more discerning with the people that eventually start with you. Like, if you have kind of this inkling in the back of your mind that this guy might be a shithead, that might not be the person, even though they might be strong, even though they might be a good, feather in the cap from a strength coach perspective, that's not going to be the person that builds our brand and pushes us forward. Because at the end of the day, if you have a client who's middle of the pack, goes to a meet, super fucking nice to everyone in the warm-up room, and does well and is engaging, and then they see that person progress, they're probably still going to hire you. Whereas if you have a really strong lifter and they're kind of standoffish, they're kind of a dick, people don't really get along with them, and then people see them progress, that might actually be a reason for potential clients not to work with you because that person's rubbing them the wrong way.
Have you ever read the book From Good to Great from Jim Collins?
No.
I guarantee your dad has it. So that's where the expression good is the enemy of great comes from. It's from that book. And he does, the entire first chapter is the analogy of picking your team, putting them together, making sure everyone has the same vision and everyone's going in the same direction. It's the entire first chapter, but he describes it as a bus. You're the driver of the bus. Your bus is your company. You're picking each part of the team that does everything for you. Like you have your clinician on your team, you have your coaches on your team, you have your nutrition person on the team. They're all going in the same direction. They all share the same vision. And then he uses that model to show different companies how they were on the downslide, restructured and reorganized, and went back on the upslide and it drastically grew, like Gillette, the shaving company and stuff like that. There's a lot of business models in there, but that is his same philosophy, is vetting the people you work with to make sure that everyone's going in the same direction so they don't pull you back with them.
Yeah, and it was, and that's a pitfall that a lot of earlier coaches or newer coaches fall into, right? It's like, it's so funny, right? I've had this conversation with, the other owners that I have at Kodiak. We use Jem as kind of our like canary in the coal mine. So it's like if she gets off the call with someone and she's like,
I'm not feeling their vibe.
yeah, we're like, and I've given her carte blanche to be like, listen, like if they're not good, like you need to let me know because we can't have that impact us, on a company side.
Reflection upon you, absolutely. I agree with that. And you want to make sure that your company is your baby. You want to be seen in the right light, and it's not just yours now because you have people who work for you. It's a representation of them.
Exactly.
Very cool. I really like that philosophy and I like that mindset. How do people contact you for direct coaching or to work with Kodiak directly?
Yeah. So if you want to just work with Kodiak in general, and we can do an intake and kind of set you up with whoever's going to work best with you, you can go through the website. There's a form at the bottom. It's just contact us. If you want to work with me directly, you can email me at stu@kodiakbarbell.com or email me. Oh, thanks, Dan. Or you can just DM me on Instagram on this Instagram, Stu_Kodiak Barbell.
All right, so DM directly or check out the website. And then I want to know, why does Wiggy sound like Tom Selleck looks?
Dude, he's got the best voice.
He should be like an author for Book on Tape.
Oh, dude, it's so bad. And it was yeah, great voice.
Somehow Wiggy is the long-lost son of Don Fry. So if you can picture Don Fry, the MMA fighter from the UFC, and you listen to him with that growly voice and then just have Wiggy send you a voice DM, because he'll send you like 6, by the way. Don Fry and Wiggy are the same person, except Don Fry has better stories.
Well, the good thing is now Dan's super legit because Dan now has a $500.
Oh, finally. Yeah, he messaged me yesterday about his deadlift and getting overly excited in the bench. So he was pretty excited about that. Great job there, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So I appreciate your time. That was super informative from a business perspective for so many up-and-coming coaches or people who want to coach and desire to coach. You dropped so many nuggets of business wisdom there and the growth and the networking and how you scaled and learned. So I appreciate that. It was awesome. And I'm definitely going to DM you for your list of books because I have an Amazon habit like no other. Jeff Bezos owns me. He's like, hey, we think you'd like this. And I'm like, yeah, I would. I'll never fucking use it, but I got it. So I'm going to go buy Jeff Bezos another yacht after this call. Awesome, Stu. Thank you so much. I will send you the link once this is finally on YouTube. It takes like an hour to go through, so that way you can share it too. But super informative. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Take care.
Have a good one.